Welcome to the next in the series of science and cooking lectures. We again are very privileged to have some wonderful chefs visiting us. We're also, I should acknowledge, as always, our sponsors. Jose Andres, who we heard last week, Think Food Group, Alicia, which sponsors both intellectually and financially, Montferrand, Whole Foods on River Street supplies all the food for the labs, because we eat our labs in this class. Fusion Chef by Julabo provides the immersion heaters that we use for the sous vide cooking, and this bank provides some additional funding. So next week, we have Wiley Dufresne, who is the expert in transglutaminase, and he's going to tell us about his experiments with meat glue. And this week, we have Nando Giovanni and Carlos Getch, and they will tell us about mixing the unmixable, or about emulsions and foams. And I will begin by describing a little bit of the science behind the emulsions and foams. I will start by focusing on emulsions, but tell you then about the foams as well. So what is an emulsion? Well, actually, you probably are all familiar with an emulsion. In fact, I can make an emulsion if I'm careful. An emulsion, as shown here, is just a mixture of a dispersed phase in a continuous phase. So it's a mixture of two immiscible fluids, fluids that don't dissolve in one another. And the most common example is oil and water, shown here. Can you zoom in with this? Oil and water. So I will actually stand here. And the way you mix emulsions, you all know, or think of a vinaigrette, is just by shaking them up. So this is gently shaken, and you can see there's bubbles of one fluid in the other. And I'll just put this down here. And can I have the slides back? Yeah. So what I did was I mixed the oil, which was on the top, was lighter. I mixed that with the water, and I formed drops of oil and water. They don't mix, so instead I disperse the oil in the water, as shown here, as drops. To do that, I used one of these very fancy tools, my hand. But there are a lot of other tools that are commonly used. We'll see some examples of them tonight. In all cases, you have to supply some kind of energy. You have to supply energy to break the fluid into smaller drops. And what you do typically is you shear the fluid. So imagine these drops and watch one of these super animations brought to you courtesy of Naveen Sinha. You shear them, they stretch, and when they stretch, they break into smaller drops. And that's always how you make the emulsion. You put some kind of energy, some kind of force to stretch them out, and when they stretch out, they're susceptible to a breakup, and they form smaller drops. But it's not enough to break them up, and I can show you that very explicitly with this example. Can we look at this camera? Notice that the emulsions are no longer stable. The drops are no longer stable. They've separated back into the original phase of the oil on the top and the water on the bottom. Can I have the slide back, please? So emulsions, somehow, if you don't do something special, they tend to want to separate back, and phase separate back into the original phase of the oil on the top and the water on the bottom. And so what you have to do is stabilize them. And here's an example of how you can stabilize them. You always add some kind of surfactant. A surfactant is an amphiphilic molecule. It's a molecule that likes both oil and water and is joined in the middle. So you can see this part likes water, this part likes oil, and the surfactant molecules therefore sit at the interface. And here I have just a little bit of surfactant, lecithin, and I will try to gently pour this into the mixture here. And seal it so that I can shake it without spilling. I'll just shake the surfactant to dissolve it a bit.
What's the name of the surfactant?
This is lecithin. So if you were making vinaigrette, you could do the same thing. You would use olive oil, of course, and vinegar, and you would mix them together, and the same thing would happen if you mixed olive oil and vinegar as happened there. They would form a nice vinaigrette, but they would phase separate. But what you do is you add some kind of flavoring, typically, for example, mustard powder, and when you do that, the same thing happens as I have here with the lecithin, with the surfactant, and now you'll see that this will remain stable. The drops may float up, but they will, that's just because of the buoyancy effect. The actual drops will not coalesce and form the original phase-separated oil and water the way these have done now, if you see this. Okay, and so maybe we can come back and look at this at the end of my little section, but in the meantime, could we have the slides back? So the role of the surfactant, the primary role of the surfactant is to stabilize the drops, to prevent them from coalescing, to prevent them from coming back together, to make them remain as drops. And that happens because the surfactant molecules adsorb at the interface as shown here, and this is an oil drop and this is an oil drop. This is just a big blow up of what happens, and when they approach one another, the surfactant molecules act as bumpers. They repel each other and prevent the drops from coming in contact, prevent the drops from coalescing. And that's the important role of surfactants. It's to stabilize the emulsion. Now, emulsion is a dispersed phase of a fluid drop in a continuous phase of a second fluid, but there are other types of things. We can first of all classify the emulsions. We classify the emulsions if it's an oil and water emulsion, then we call that an indirect emulsion. Oil and water, a water and oil emulsion is a direct emulsion. These are rather historic names. They come about because of the ease at which you can stabilize them given the way the surfactants actually work. You don't have to emulsify just a liquid drops. If you have a gas bubble instead of a liquid, that's called a foam. If you have small solid particles rather than a fluid dispersed in another fluid, that's called a colloidal suspension. All of these are dispersed systems of different types of materials. So there's an emulsion, there's foams, and there's colloidal suspensions. One of the most interesting aspects of the emulsions, and something that we'll certainly see tonight, is that they can change their elastic behavior depending very simply on the way they're mixed together. So first of all, what happens is as you mix the drops, as you break the drops from large into small, you increase the surface area, and to make new surfaces requires energy. This is why you're putting the energy into the system. You're making new surfaces. And here I show you, imagine a single drop that's 1 micron in diameter, and I break it into something that's a half a micron in diameter. This is something that you would do if you emulsified something with one of these stirrers, one of the more automatic kinds of stirrers. You can't do it so easily by hand because you're breaking them into such small drops. But if you do it with these more automated things, you can rather easily break them into drops of this size. And if you change the radius by a factor of 2, the total number of drops changes by a factor. You get 8 times as many drops. The volume remains the same, but the surface area decreases, and you can see it roughly doubles going as you change the number of drops by a factor of 2. It increases the surface area. And this is where you're putting the energy in. You're putting the energy in to make the new surface. So surface actually represents an energy. It represents an energy per unit area, and that's actually a surface tension. Surface tensions are often quoted in units of force per length, which is a tension. It's a force, but it has the same units as energy. If I multiply this by length and this by length, that's energy per area. And that's really what the surface tension is. It's telling you how much energy it takes to create new surface. You create new surface independent of whether you have the surfactant there. You did it in both cases. If you have a drop then with a surface tension, because there's a force, there's a tension on the surface, on the interface, the drop, you can think of it as having a force pulling on the drop. As a result, there's a force all the way around this, and you can only retain a spherical shape if you have an excess pressure on the inside. And this pressure depends on the surface tension and the radius of the drop. And so whenever you see a spherical object, whether it's a gas bubble or a drop of a fluid, there's an internal pressure that's a little bit larger than the external pressure. This is actually not so surprising to you. It's exactly the same reason that if you have a balloon, you have to blow up the balloon in order to stretch the elastic membrane. You're doing exactly the same thing with a balloon as you are with a drop or a bubble. If you add surfactant, surfactant lowers the surface energy. It actually takes less energy to create an interface if you have surfactant. And so an important role of surfactant is to lower the surface energy, but the role that's most important for everything that we do to make a foam or to make an emulsion is to stabilize the bubbles or stabilize the drops. An important way of parameterizing this is through the volume fraction. It's just the fraction of the total volume that's in the dispersed phase. So if you have an oil and water emulsion, you have a certain number of drops of oil in the water. They each have a certain volume, so you have a total volume of oil, and the total volume of the whole suspension is the volume of the oil and the volume of the water, and this fraction is the volume fraction of the dispersed phase. And as you increase the amount of oil, you increase the volume fraction of the dispersed phase. And the interesting thing, why this is a very important thing to understand, the interesting thing is as you increase it, you no longer can pack them in the same fashion. So if you pack them, if you imagine all the drops were, let's just say for simplicity, the same size, they'd all be spherical when you pack them at low volume fraction. But as you increase the volume fraction, there is some point which we call the critical volume fraction, where they no longer can pack and remain spherical. So as you pack them beyond that point, they can no longer be spherical. Instead, what happens is they deform one another because you're packing them together. So these two drops are deformed, and when you deform the drops, you actually have to exert a force. So it's like squeezing two springs together. So the drops are pushing apart. And the fact that they're pushing apart changes the character of the total emulsion. It no longer becomes fluid-like, but instead becomes elastic. And again, you know this works both for foams and emulsions. Here's an example of what happens if you do a foam. This is whipped cream. Whipped cream is in fact an emulsion. It's small drops of fat in water. It's typically, depending on the concentration, something like 15% of the volume fraction is fat, but it acts as a fluid. It pours like a fluid. But as you whip air into it and make a foam, it gets increasingly stiff. It gets increasingly elastic as you increase the volume fraction. And so this allows us then, we know that it takes a certain force to deform the drops. That's given by the surface tension and their size. And it takes, you get more and more force resisting it as you increase the volume fraction, but you have to go above this critical volume fraction. And so this brings us to summarize them, we get our equation of the weak, which gives us the elasticity. So you can see the elasticity is given by the surface tension and the radius. This has units of elastic constant. This tells you how difficult it is to squeeze a single drop, and this is the effect of the volume fraction. You have to be above the critical volume fraction, and as you go above the critical volume fraction, it increases linearly as you go above the critical volume fraction. And that's the equation of the weak. And just before I finish, if I could just have the camera one more time, and I'll hold these two emulsions up. And hopefully you can see, although the one with the lecithin has creamed, the drops still remain. There's still drops. It hasn't completely coalesced, whereas this one now is a clear oil. And that's just the nature of the surfactant stabilizing the drops. Okay, with that, I'd like now to introduce Nando and Carlos, who will tell us more practical things about emulsions.
Bueno, tenim inclús més temps del normal. Sí, perfecte. Comencem amb el vídeo. Amb el vídeo? Ok. El durem per la pantalla petita. Sí. Ho veiem. Apagar els llums.
Jubany.
És Amèrica, eh?
Jubany.
No et riguis, eh? Bueno, vam fer el vídeo expressament perquè hi havia gent l'any passat que es pensava que jo només tenia un restaurant que feia maionesa i allioli.
We made the video because there were people last year that thought that in my restaurant we were only making mayonnaise and aioli.
No. Al meu restaurant no només fem maionesa i allioli, fem moltes altres coses.
In my restaurant we not only make mayonnaise and aioli, we make many other things.
Bueno, començarem.
Okay, we're going to start.
Començarem fent una lactonesa,
We're going to start making a lactonese,
que és la mateixa manera, la mateixa recepta que una maionesa normal, però canviant el rovell d'ou per la llet.
it is like a regular mayonnaise, but we substitute the egg yolk by milk.
Vale, posarem,
Hence the name.
posarem la llet,
Okay,
l'oli
the
de girassol,
milk, sunflower oil,
seran 300 de llet, 300 grams de llet, 700 grams de llet. Ai, d'oli.
300 grams of milk, 700 grams of oil.
I el podrem aromatitzar amb el gust que vulguem.
And we're going to, flavor it with whatever aromatics that we want.
Lemon, chive,
Lemon,
persil.
chives, parsley.
En farem de wasabi. El farem de wasabi i herbes.
Okay, this time is going to be with wasabi powder and herbs.
Posarem 15 grams de wasabi.
15 grams of wasabi powder.
M'agrada el gust picant.
I
M'agrada el
like
gust.
this spicy note.
I hem picat 10 grams de cibulet i 10 grams de julivert.
And then we'll mince 10 grams of parsley and 10 grams of chives.
I ara aquí és important, molt important, la temperatura. Hi ha d'haver la mateixa temperatura de l'oli que de la llet.
The thing that's very important is the temperature. The milk and the oil have to have exactly the same temperature.
Començarem molt a poc.
Going to start very slowly. Immersion blender.
En aquest cas hem utilitzat oli de girassol, però anem a buscar un oli neutre. Podria ser de girassol, de pipes, del que vulguem, però que sigui suau, que no tingui gust.
In this case, we use a sunflower oil, but what we seek is like a neutral oil, one that doesn't have too much taste. We could use as well as sunflower seeds, neutral oil.
És molt fàcil. Si poses 300 de llet, 700 d'oli, ho pot fer tothom, fins un nano petit. No hi ha cap problema.
That it's very easy if you use the right measures, 300 and 700, 300 milk, 700 oil, even a kid can make it.
Ara si el Dave el vol posar al microscopi,
Dave wants to put it under the microscope.
Fortunately, we have Daniel Rosenberg here, and he will help us by looking at all of them. First, can we just see, remember, he used about twice as much oil as water. It's oil dispersed in water. What do we know about it? It's elastic, right? It's a solid. Two fluids made into a solid.
Està aquí, està aquí. Està aquí, Carles.
Set it up yourself. Set it up yourself. Whoa. Your friend. Nando, your friend. Look at this.
My friend.
Camino.
Sí,
You
sí,
see
sí.
the bubbles? Notice they're very small ones here. There have to be small ones, right? The elasticity goes up as the size goes down. Remember the equation of the week? So you can see some larger ones, but it's these small bubbles, these very small bubbles, that is what makes this as elastic as it is. And Daniel, because it's opaque, Daniel has taken a very, very thin slice. And so there's not bubbles everywhere. And you can see them. They're so small that you can barely resolve them with this magnification.
És good?
Yep.
Comencem per fer una altra emulsió, que farem un aire de parmesà.
Okay, next thing is going to be a Parmesan air.
I és molt curiós perquè podem donar una forma com si fos un cake, com si fos un pastís de pa.
We can shape it as a cake.
Però és d'aire, és unes petites bombolles que aguanten congelades i ho mirarem congelat i fresc.
Okay, and there are little bubbles that they stand very well frozen, and we're going to take a look at them frozen and fresh.
Posarem, la recepta serien 5 quilos de parmesà ratllat,
The recipe calls for 5 kilos of Parmesan, grated Parmesan,
4 litres i mig d'aigua,
4 liters and a half of water.
i ho posaríem a bullir l'aigua i una vegada bullir l'aigua hi tiraríem el parmesà.
We would start boiling the water, and at that point we're going to add the Parmesan.
Deixaríem que infusioni durant 2 hores
Going to let infuse to sip for a couple of hours,
i el colaríem,
and then we're going to strain it.
I obtindríem un suero, obtindríem un brou
And we're going to
líquid.
end up with a broth, a liquid broth.
D'acord? Després, aquest líquid el posaríem a escalfar a 50 graus
And we're going to heat it up, the broth, we're going to heat it at 50 degrees Celsius.
i en una petita part hi afegiríem la lecitina, 7 grams per litre.
And we're going to add the lecithin, it's going to be 7 grams per liter.
Exactament. I ara haurem de fer engegar el turmix i deixar reposar les bombolles 2 minuts.
We're going to start, to start the blender, the immersion blender on, and we're going to let it bubble for 2 minutes.
Perfecte. Jo aniré fent i dono la paraula al Carles i comenci una recepta al Carles i jo vaig fent.
Okay, I'm going to get started with my recipe, and I'm going to let Carlos talk.
Bona tarda.
Good evening.
Encantat d'estar aquí.
Very happy to be here.
El que us proposaré avui serà unes receptes de caire molt tradicionals i ancestrals.
What we're going to do today, it's very ancestral and traditional recipes,
On, evidentment, hi entra l'emulsió de líquids aquosos i de líquids oliosos.
that were the center, the king, it's the emulsion, using oily liquids and watery liquids.
Totes aquestes provenen, evidentment, del Mediterrani.
All of these recipes come from the Mediterranean.
I començarem per una que és de vessant mediterrània, però de finalitat canària, que és el mojo verd.
We're going to start with one with, it's Mediterranean inspired, but the origins come from the Canary Islands, which we're going to call mojo verde, green mojo.
Aquí en tenim unes de 3 de fetes,
We have 3 already made.
que una està feta amb l'all, és el cordó fonamental amb aquestes salses.
The first, the center, the core, it's garlic for these sauces.
Una està feta amb el cor, amb l'ànima, on realment, doncs, a vegades, aquest tipus d'emulsions ens donen una digestió més pesada.
The one is made with the core, with the center of the garlic, which sometimes give us heavier digestions.
L'altra, sense l'ànima aquesta,
The other one without the core, the garlic core.
I l'altre amb l'all escalivat, com es podria veure aquí, per exemple,
And
que
the
és all posat al forn,
And the other one with roasted garlic, which is garlic put in the oven.
i ara, de totes maneres, anem a fer-ne una en directe.
So we're going to make one live here for you.
Molt bé. Doncs hi posarem l'all.
Going to start with the garlic.
Com tota recepta ancestral, doncs són unes proporcions normals, sense haver-hi excessos ni desequilibris.
As all recipes, they made with precise proportions and everything is in balance.
Julivert, perejil,
Parsley,
coriandre, cilantro,
cilantro,
guindilla verda, picant,
green chili,
xili, i després hi posarem aguacate.
and we're going to add avocado as well.
Possiblement el coriandre, que és el que li dona d'alguna manera el fet diferencial i que últimament doncs, s'ha utilitzat molt a la cuina mexicana,
That coriander is the thing that gives it a distinctive flavor, and it's been very much used in Mexican cooking, for instance.
i que és d'origen del Mediterrani.
But its origins come from the Mediterranean.
I un pols de comí.
And a little bit of powder, cumin powder.
Si has de comentar alguna cosa, Nando? Perquè jo començo a fer soroll. Sí.
Bueno, la primera vegada hem muntat i hem fet emulsionar, que surti espuma i hem deixat reposar 2 minuts.
The first time we emulsify it, and when we achieve some foam, then we let it rest for a couple of minutes.
És molt important deixar reposar la bombolla, perquè si deixes reposar 2 minuts abans d'agafar-la és estable. Si no, no és estable.
It's very important to let it rest, because if not, it's not going to be stable.
Perfecte. Ara ho tornarem a posar. Ho ha fet 2 minuts, el Carles, el tormissa durant 1 minut, deixa reposar 2 minuts, i ara jo us ensenyaré una recepta que és la mateixa, congelada.
Okay, and now I'm going to show you the same thing, but it has been previously frozen.
Que és com si fos un pa.
And it looks like bread.
Que tenim aquí un pa, tornem a posar. Traiem un altre. Tens un plat com aquest per posar-ho, similar. Ara en traurem un altre. No sé per què, això ens hauria de dir el Dave, que quan tu canvies, no deixes reposar aquests 2 minuts, realment no aguanta l'emulsió, és diferent.
That I don't know why, but if we don't have these 2 minutes of resting time, the emulsion doesn't stand up. That probably David can explain why.
Ja està.
Let's see the pictures.
Ara m'agradaria,
Sí, ara li posem.
és aquest, sí, is the form, is the texture, special texture.
Nice.
Is good, eh?
Espera't, aquí? No.
One moment,
On va aquest?
one moment, please.
Look at it. Look at the microscope.
Thank you. This is frozen. This is frozen?
Sí, ja estem ja.
So Nando wants to see the difference between a foam that's frozen and one that's not. It may melt though. That's okay.
Deixa'm-ho posar aquí. Ja no llencis.
You can see that it's starting to melt. It still has lots of bubbles in it. Maybe try and do a very quick look at something really
si pots
quickly.
entrar a la màquina,
If
ja,
you can
a la-
Tu també?
put some foam
You'll be able to
on it, Daniel. Just take some really
get a picture of inside. Inside, yeah.
Sí. Sí, Carles. Carles.
Està progressant el Monjo. Està progressant, ja?
Estan mirant a dalt.
No, està mirant a tu.
A mi? Vale. Bueno, evidentment el comportament sense ànima, amb ànima o escalivat és el mateix. No havia fet mai la prova, l'he fet aquest dematí i ara els he barrejat tots junts perquè el resultat és exactament el mateix. L'únic que l'escalivat baixa la intensitat de l'aigua.
Sí, ens hi mirem.
That the result, the final result, using the core of the garlic and using whole garlic with its core and roasted garlic is exactly the same. You know, it behaves the same way. The only difference actually is that when you use roasted garlic, the intensity, the flavor of garlic, it's lesser than using the whole garlic clove or just the core.
Podríem continuar emulsionant més, però bueno, perquè vegin la prova, perquè ho vegin aquí
We could continue doing that, you know,
i que tenim bastantes coses encara
on and on, but we have many
Emulsionar?
things to discuss, so let's let's move on.
També l'hem de posar al microscopi, eh?
So we're going to put it under the microscope as well.
Espera. Bueno, és igual.
Can we have the microscope? Oh,
Posem en un...
oh.
Algú tenim? Algú per posar-lo?
See, these have much larger bubbles.
Is my bubbles?
Yeah, your bubbles. Have a look at them.
Perfect.
Nando, have a look at them.
My friend.
They're beautiful.
Beautiful. Perfect. Is different?
It's
Is
totally different. Totally different. These
frozen-
are much larger bubbles.
Is
See-
it stable?
These are stable, yes. Notice that these don't move around because this is still a solid, right? Whereas the frozen one was a liquid as soon as it melted. What's this, Daniel? Is this a fresh sample?
The fit, the difference.
Same melted sample. They have much smaller bubbles here. Try putting a fresh sample of frozen stuff on, just see if we can see it quickly.
Sí.
Just low magnification. I think you might be able to see the,
Frozen? Yes.
see it before it melts.
Arriben les olors a la
Yeah.
sala.
Can you
Explica,
smell?
explica.
Can you
Explica,
catch a
explica.
waft of it?
See when it first
Explica,
melts.
és el pot.
Evidentment que la nostra intenció és que no només arribi l'olor, sinó que també que ho provin.
That our intention
You
is
see
not
it
only for
melting
you
here.
to get the smell, but to taste it as well.
Els donarem de provar, tot.
That everything, you'll be able to taste everything.
There's some particles here that are flowing with the fluid. And this was a stable foam. This was solid because it was frozen. Now you lose the solidity. The volume fraction is not as large. The bubbles are not, here you can see they're still solid here. But there's not as many bubbles. The solidity is coming because you're freezing the fluid. The aging that Nando wanted to do with the other emulsion was a little bit of drainage to increase the volume fraction. And you increase the volume fraction, it becomes more elastic.
Ahora
We
el
have to
mojo.
explain what you're doing now.
Ahora podemos poner el mojo.
Do you want to, yeah.
Is stable, eh?
Yeah, very stable. And solid.
Això és l'aire.
L'aire. Sí, l'aire parmesà.
Fluid at the bottom? Yeah. It's more fluid at the bottom, you see?
Yes?
It's draining.
Yeah, no,
The fluid drains.
leave it.
Yeah, that's solid because it's higher volume fraction. That's your aging.
Ara començarem a veure, eh?
Oh.
Aquests són les teves, eh?
If you watch carefully, you can see some of the bubbles are moving around. That's because they're slowly aging, they're slowly popping.
Està ben calent? Per bateria. It's good?
Molt bé.
It's very good.
Is your bubbles, eh?
Bueno. Vas tu?
Sí. Anem per una altra.
Okay, next recipe.
És una salsa holandesa.
Hollandaise sauce.
Normalment es fa amb animal, es fa amb mantega, amb mantequilla.
Usually-
Mantequilla i rovells d'ou.
Usually it's made with butter and egg yolks.
I en aquest cas el farem amb oli de nous, canviarem i farem una cosa totalment vegetal.
So we're going to have, instead of having an animal one, we're going to have a vegetarian one, and it's going to be made with walnut oil
És una
instead
mo-
of butter.
És una emulsió molt senzilla.
It's a very simple emulsion.
La gent es pensa que és difícil, però l'únic que han de seguir uns paràmetres.
People think that it's difficult, but the only thing that you have to do is to follow certain parameters.
Sobretot, com l'altre, hi ha d'haver la mateixa temperatura.
As we said before, the most important thing is to have all the liquids in the same temperature.
Hem posat l'oli de nous, l'hem posat en un ball maria calent, perquè estigui uns 35-40 graus.
We put the walnut oil in a bain-marie, so it reaches like a 35-40 degrees Celsius temperature.
I aquí hem posat un altre ball maria calent per poder tenir aquests rovells d'ous a 45-50 graus.
The same thing for the eggs, another bain-marie, to have the egg yolks at 40-45 degrees Celsius.
Muntarem durant un moment, ja veureu que de seguida es muntarà,
Going to mix it and bind it.
i podem posar qualsevol sabor. Aquesta preparació jo la faig servir molt per acompanyar un carpaccio de bolets, un carpaccio de ceps.
You can use whatever aromatic that you wish to use. I use it a lot to accompany mushroom carpaccio, wild mushroom carpaccio.
I depèn del gust que vulguem, hi podem posar llimona, hi podem posar chive, hi podem posar pèrsil, hi podem posar el que vulguem nosaltres.
We can use lemon, we can use chives, we can use parsley, whatever you want. Sky is the limit.
Si volem trobar el gust de la nou, només hi posarem sal i una mica de pebre blanc i ja està.
If we just want to taste the walnut, then the only thing that we're going to use is salt and a little bit of white pepper.
Ara la que tenim el rovell muntat, suposo que es veu que comença a estar muntat, tenim una temperatura,
Once the egg yolk is binded.
Hauríem de tenir una mica més de temperatura.
Should reach like a higher temperature.
Sí, una mica més de temperatura. Sí que és important és tenir la mateixa temperatura. És el més important.
The most important thing is to have exactly the same temperature.
Normalment, les emulsions, jo no sé, Dave, si ens canviarà, però es tallen per dues coses.
That usually emulsions, they separate due to two causes. I don't know if Dave is going to agree with me.
Per canvis de temperatura
Temperature changes, A,
o bé perquè s'espessa massa quan no hi ha la proporció ideal entre el que és la grassa amb el líquid.
and the second one, it's B, it's when it gets too thick because the proportion between fat and liquid is off balance.
What Nando is saying is that if you have too much of the dispersed phase, the emulsion can do what we call break. It can invert because you have so much of the dispersed phase, so much oil, that the oil is the dispersed phase. It can break up and the small amount of water becomes dispersed in the oil. So that's called a phase inversion, or breaking the emulsion.
Veieu ara, jo començo a muntar, primer sempre totes les emulsions, molt a poc.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm sorry, binding them, but as with all emulsions, you have to start very, very slowly.
Com més quantitat tinguem de ja maionesa muntada, holandesa muntada, hi podrem anar més de pressa.
Once it's getting more solid, then you can go a little faster.
Ara aquí se'ns espessa massa,
Here it's too thick,
se'ns espessa molt,
it's way too thick.
i tirem una mica de llimona
So
o aigua.
We add a little lemon juice or a little water.
Si podem posar una mica d'aigua. És aigua? Està calenta.
Està calenta,
És molt important calenta, no sé per què. Això també ens ho hauran d'explicar aquí.
It's very important that the water be hot, and I don't know why, Probably the Harvard people can explain that.
So what Nando is doing is he's increasing the elasticity by having a very high volume fraction, and he says it gets too stiff, the volume fraction is too high, so he adds continuous phase, he adds the water, but he wants the water to not phase separate or do anything funny, so he wants to have it at the same temperature. So he says he has to add it at exactly the same temperature. Adding either water or lemon juice is the equivalent of adding the continuous phase that decreases the elasticity. He says it's not so thick. And you can see it's not as thick. Now he'll mix it up more, you get the drops smaller, and that will become stiffer again. And he'll add more of the dispersed phase, more oil, which will also stiffen it.
Ara cada cop podria anar corrent més, podria anar més de pressa.
Can go faster and faster.
Anar més de pressa amb la incorporació de la matèria grassa.
Sí.
Les varilles han d'anar sempre de pressa.
Sí, clar. He de córrer... Puc córrer més a tirar matèria grassa. Sempre això pot anar com vulguis, depèn de la força de cadascú.
Yeah. So it's not what I say faster and faster is not just by stirring it, but it's by the adding of the fat. So go faster pouring the fat, not, that depends on each one's strength. Steering.
D'aquí una estona podran comprovar fins on arriba la força d'aquest noi.
In a little bit you'll be able to see
És sorpresa, pel final.
his strength. It's a surprise that we have for the end.
Bueno, no sé si me'n sortiré.
I don't know if I'll be able to make it, but
Veieu, cada cop quan se m'espessa massa hi poso una miqueta d'oli. Una miqueta d'aigua.
every time that it's too thick, I add a little water.
I vaig muntant, i ja està.
It's stirring.
Després, jo el que sé és que per 3 rovells puc muntar màxim mig litre, 450 grams aproximadament d'oli, de greix. Si em passo, se'm talla.
Usually the equation is to use 3 egg yolks, and I think that with 3 egg yolks I can use like 450 grams of oil If I use more oil, then it's when it's going to separate.
Sí, no, tirarem una mica menys aquí. Ja quasi la tindrem.
It's almost ready.
Si aquesta salsa la volem gratinar i que volem que sigui estable per regratinar, hi hem de posar menys quantitat de greix i que quedi més rovell d'ou, perquè si no, no gratina.
If we want to use this sauce to be used in a gratin, what we have to do is we have to use less egg yolk, if not, it's not going to gratin correctly.
Ara el que fem és que hi posem el gust que vulguem. En aquest cas vull tenir gust a nous, i he posat cibulet, anous, sal, pebre blanc.
So in this, then we're going to flavor it the way that we want, and in this case, I want to keep the flavor of the nuts, so I added the walnuts, a little bit of white pepper, chives.
I la tindrem perfecta. Aquest cop ens ha sortit bé.
This time it was good.
Si volem mirar-ho,
Do you want to look under the microscope?
Àngels, amb el romesco, eh? Jo. Aioli? No, amb això. Sí.
Romesco, ara.
Vols començar?
Treus tot això?
O espera.
Això ho traiem. Aioli.
Quina pinta de té.
Bueno, ara començarem ja a muntar aioli. El que vull fer al final, com que tardo molt, ho començaré a fer ara per d'aquí 20 minuts acabar-ho.
So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start with my aioli. That's the final surprise, but since it takes 20 minutes, it would be good to get started now.
Is different de la lactonès?
Yes. Notice the very, very fine structure here, the very fine bubbles. As you focus through them, you can see the very, very fine drops.
On té l'altre litre? Aquest?
And he was able to make them so small because it was becoming elastic. As he mixed it, you're shearing an elastic network or a nearly elastic material, and that breaks the drops even smaller. That's why he says he can add oil more rapidly. It's becoming elastic, and then it's very good, easy to break the oil into smaller and smaller drops. So Daniel says they're super fine. This texture you see is actually very, very small drops. You can't really see through it because of the scattering from the light, but there you barely can see it. Oh, that's beautiful. Very nice, Nando. Perfect. Excellent. Takes
Bueno,
great strength.
haig de dir que això només ho he fet un cop, m'ho ha ensenyat un home de Palafrugell.
That I have to say that what I'm going to do now, I just done that once before in my life, and someone from Palafrugell, a little Catalan village, was the one that taught me how to make it.
Que cada any ell guanya el campionat, com el campionat de Catalunya, d'all i oli, de muntar all i oli com més ràpid millor.
So every year he's the winner of the aioli competition that we have in Catalonia, and the faster the better.
I muntaré 5 litros d'all i oli amb la mà.
I'm going to bind and mix 5 liters of aioli, but only using my hand.
Yes. Just garlic and olive oil.
Okay, so just garlic, yeah, and olive oil.
Yes. It's very important the proportion, la proporció d'all
Yeah, it's very important the proportion.
amb l'oli. Són 140 grams d'all per litre.
140 grams of garlic per liter.
Farem ara 700 grams d'all
700, for this case, we're going to use 700 grams of garlic,
per 5 litres.
5 liters of olive oil.
Hem agafat els alls i els hem picat amb el morter.
We have already mashed them with
El
more than
Carlos l'ha fet 3 hores, eh?
more than pestle. 3 hours.
És molt important que estigui molt picat.
It's very important. It's very finely mashed.
Hi ha un truco que és posar-hi una mica de sal amb els alls, perquè si no volen.
That the trick to do that, to accomplish that, it's to add a little bit of salt with the garlics. If not, they'll fly
Quan
away.
posem els grans d'all aquí sueltos, és molt important posar-hi sal,
So a little bit to add a little salt.
perquè si no
Then
salten.
they'll try to escape.
Només m'ajudaré amb una miqueta d'aigua tèbia. De tant en tant hi tiraré una miqueta d'aigua tèbia. I ja està, i aniré fent. Mentrestant, jo aniré fent, ho anireu veient. Si se'm talla, feu veure que no ho heu vist.
The only thing that I'm going to use once in a while is a little bit of lukewarm water, and that's it. And I'll be doing that and doing that and doing that. And Carlos will take over, and if you see that it separates, pretend that nothing has happened.
De totes maneres, ho porta gravat amb el mòbil, per si un cas.
Anyway, so he's made a video out of his cell phone, his iPhone. So that's the backup if anything happens.
Tinc la prova que ho he fet.
At least I can show you that I made it.
Molt a poc. Si tires tu a poc a poc.
Mentrestant anirem fent el romesco. El romesco és una
cullera?
salsa
Una
que es
cullera?
perd amb el temps. Jo penso que és de les millors salses
Tinc
fredes
la
que hi ha.
cullera, aquella del Carles.
That meanwhile, we're going to make some romesco. Romesco is a memorial sauce, and I think that it's one of the best cold sauces that there is.
Tira.
M'he assabentat que aquí tenen la millor biblioteca culinària possiblement del món.
I just learned that here at Harvard you have the best culinary library, perhaps one of the best in the world.
Possiblement es podria perdre aquesta salsa amb l'imperi romà o abans.
That probably this sauce, if we follow a thread, it would come from the Roman Empire or even before.
Si la trobeu, sisplau, dieu-m'ho.
If you find it, please let me know. If you find the origins, the precise origins, let me know.
Per fer aquesta salsa necessitem nyores.
To make this sauce, we need Ñora peppers.
A falta de nyores podria haver-hi el pebrot xoricer, però millor la nyora.
If not, another pepper used in Spain is called choricero pepper,
Okay,
but they'll coming from chorizo.
És un pebrot extremadament sec.
It's a very dry, extremely dry pepper.
Veieu que és com un plàstic.
It's almost like plastic.
Llavors, per obtenir la carn, que és aquesta,
To obtain the flesh,
l'hem de posar en remull
we have to soak it in water,
Vas bé.
2 hores
2 hours,
i amb l'ajut d'una cullera,
and then with the help of a spoon,
Te l'he presa.
jo en tenia una aquí.
I stole it.
És simplement
Un moment. Tira.
rascar-la
With the spoon, we grate
i
it
traiem tota la polpa.
to remove all the pulp, all the
Com veieu, això continua sent una matèria francament dura i complicada de digerir.
that,
Més val
as you can
evitar-la.
see, still the skin, it's like very, very tough and very difficult to digest.
El component és molt fàcil.
Podríeu anar passant el romesco.
Tenim la nyora,
The ingredients,
la polpa, vaja,
the ingredients are very easy. We have the pulp, the Ñora pulp,
tomàquet escalivat i pelat,
roasted tomatoes, which have been already peeled,
alls també escalivats i
roasted,
pelats,
roasted garlic, and obviously peeled,
pa empapat amb vinagre,
bread soaked in vinegar,
i en acabat hi afegirem la fruita seca i l'oli, evidentment.
and then we're going to add the nuts and obviously the oil.
On te l'has deixat
Aquí el tens.
Et falta?
la peça d'aquí?
Ah?
Tenia dues aquí.
Un altre cop li he pres jo.
Again, I've been blamed for that.
Si tenim aigua
Aquesta
fresc.
és la salsa romesco que ara veureu que estem fent. la
That's
que esteu
the,
degustant.
that's the romesco sauce that we are making at the moment.
És igual. No m'explicaré pas. No m'explicaré pas. Tira. Una mica més de pressa.
Pots anar parlant entretant, si vols.
Per nosaltres, a l'oli que hem de fer servir, és molt important un oli d'un cantó, concretament, de Tarragona,
That for us, when we make the romesco sauce, it's very important to choose an olive oil, in this case, olive oil that comes from the Tarragona province.
que és una oliva petita,
Comes from a small olive.
que s'anomena arbequina.
Arbequina is the name of the variety.
Aquestes oliveres estan a la prop
Anem una mica
del
de
mar
llima, vull tirar una mica
These
de llima.
olive trees are close to the ocean,
Hi ha molt suc d'una
i
llimona.
tenen una certa absència d'aquest oli amarg i que pica a vegades de l'oli.
and they lack the
Sí,
bitterness
suc de llimona, tira,
that
tira.
and the piquancy that sometimes you get from olive oil.
Un suc de les dues llimones. Bueno, els dos trossos. És igual, és igual. Xocolata també, va. Espera't un moment, ara. Espera't un moment. Ves tirant.
I tirem avellanes
We're going to add hazelnuts
i ametlles. Es pot fer
and almonds.
amb avellanes soles també, evidentment.
You could use only hazelnuts.
M'agrada veure com va això. Ben bé. Ves tirant. Ves tirant. No, ves tirant.
Absorbeix molt l'oli
Once it keeps going, it absorbs very much the oil.
que és una de les qüestions que desconec,
Mica més.
però m'imagino que deu ser la fruita seca
It's one of the things that I don't know exactly why it happens, but I imagine it may be the nuts.
Ben bé, ja. Ben bé, ja.
una mica de sal, tenim per aquí?
Sí, sal.
I, evidentment,
Sal en tenim aquí, Carles.
la sal. Vale.
Maybe we want to see,
And obviously we're going to
Tira.
add some salt.
Fa olor del serrallo, aquí. Fa olor del serrallo.
Sí?
Saps el serrallo, el barri pescador de Tarragona?
Explica'ls que això és una de les salses, bueno, és la salsa fonamental d'una menja molt tradicional a Catalunya, que és la calçotada,
That
que no sé si la coneixen.
that it's one of the main ingredients in the most Catalan dish of all called calçotada, which I don't know if you know it, but it's made with between a scallion and an overgrown, between a scallion and a leek. It's a type of onion. It's a very thick, tall onion.
I comença ara, al novembre, fins a l'abril, la calçotada.
And the calçotada, the season for it, it's between November and April.
Durant tota la temporada de la calçotada
During the whole season,
es consumeixen a Catalunya, sobretot al Tarragonès, que és el puesto de la calçotada, doncs més de 100 milions de calçots.
100 millions.
Sí. És una cosa increïble.
In the whole Tarragona province, especially where it comes from, it's been said that more than 100,000 calçots are million calçots are consumed.
Fan un concurs on, evidentment, el campió sempre es va menjar entre 450 i 500 calçots en una hora.
That they have another championship, and usually the winner is able to eat between 450 and 500 calçots in an hour of time.
Evidentment, després d'estar una setmana malalt.
Obviously, after that, he's sick for a week.
Més. Tira més. Altre.
Explica un moment com es prepara, que és gusti del foc per terra i...
És foc a terra,
Ja.
els calçots, és un rebrot de la ceba, que es calça. Calçot vol dir, si això és la ceba,
Ja.
el rebrot, el planten i el calçot vol dir que el calcen. I posen muntanya de terra i només surt una mica el rabito. I llavors això va creixent i el van calçant perquè quedi molt blanc. Calçant vol dir que no li toqui el sol.
The fact is that it's a very special onion that what they do is they cover it on both sides and they push it towards up, and what does that is that it gives it a very, very white color inside, and the more you go, the more you get up and up and up and up, and you cover it always on the sides. And they are that long usually, and Carlos was explaining that what we do in Catalonia is we have like a fire on, floor, and then you grill them that way, on top of the embers.
Una altra emulsió curiosa, que també els hi faré ara, serà una emulsió amb la tripeta.
And the next, we're going to move on to the next emulsion.
Can we have the microscope? So this is what you just ate.
Això és el que has fet ara tu. Ho veus
It's
aquí?
very tasty.
Més llimona. Més llimona.
Podríem passar al tros del vídeo del lluç?
So the nuts
Del de
can
què?
go to
De-
the surface
sí,
of
que
the
com trec la
drops and
tripeta.
stabilize them. What's
Do is a video about some cut
Una mica més de l'altre.
when we make the next dish.
Una gota més d'aigua.
That's about 400 microns across the screen. So 4/10 of a milliliter.
millimeter? So this much is about half a millimeter.
Deixa-ho treballar.
Good?
Deixa-ho treballar.
Excellent.
Valent. Sí, tira oli.
Sí. Ara passarem
Ara passem
un
al
vídeo
vídeo.
perquè vegin d'on trec la peça aquesta del peix, que pot ser de lluç i de bacallà.
Now, the next video, we're going to show you a video for the next dish, and you'll see where I get exactly the piece of fish that I'm going to use. Usually it comes from cod or from hake. And I've been struggling with the name in English, but I think probably the best way to call it would be the natatory glands that fish have. So they help them float, and it runs parallel to the esophagus. That's as close as we can get.
Hi ha una peça molt important del cada lluç que porta, que és la cocotxa, que això és una excel·lència.
And there's another part of very special part of that fish as well, which is called in Spanish cococha, and not to be confused with the cheeks, but it's what we would call probably in English the double chin. It's here.
Evidentment, per fer un plat necessites 10 lluços.
So to make a dish, you need 10 fish.
I això d'aquí dintre, que està agafada aquí, exactament, això és això d'aquí.
And that part that is attached here to the runs parallel to the esophagus, it's exactly that. Carlos was saying that sometimes it gets full of water to
Sí.
help the fish float.
Exacte. És la bufeta on oscil·la, que és l'efecte submarí.
Exactly like a submarine. The same principle, the same physical principle as a submarine.
Quan es posa a bullir, és neta, evidentment, no és cap víscera, no és res, és una vejiga. Quan
It's not
es
just
posa
plain, you know, it's clean here, but when we boil it,
a bullir amb aigua,
with water,
llavors queda amb aquesta textura.
it ends up with this texture.
Hi ha una part tremendíssima de gelatines
There's lots of gelatin.
i això per menjar, simplement saltejada amb una llegum o un estofadet una mica, és extraordinària, de finura. No té cap gust fort, sinó que és tot finura i tot melositat.
That to eat that just with a stew, like for instance, like a legume stew, it's very, very fine. It's a very fine taste that you get and very nice texture as well.
Ens imaginem que ja hem bullit la tripeta
Let's imagine for a second that we've boiled the natatory glands.
i llavors el que fem és, amb aquesta aigua,
With this very water,
No, bé, bé, bé.
ara,
no, okay.
ok, la posem. Heu vist que ha agafat una mica de densitat l'aigua perquè té molta gelatina natural.
As you can see, that this water has a different color and a different density due to the gelatin.
Per un moment.
I posem una mica
Deixa-ho,
d'all laminat
I'm going to slice some garlic.
Ja.
més aviat fi,
Fine, if possible.
i deixarem que acabi de reduir perquè ens faci més concentració.
And then we'll let it reduce so it gets very concentrated.
Després el deixarem reposar uns minuts
After that, we're going to let it rest for a few minutes.
i esperem que s'emulsioni, amb
And,
oli,
we,
evidentment.
and we hope that it'll get emulsified with oil, of course.
Nando, com va això?
How's it going there?
Estic una mica collonit.
I'm a little intimidated.
Bueno,
Sí, va bé.
va bé. Vale. Necessites aigua calenta o alguna
No,
mica? Temperada?
em falten 10 minuts, crec jo.
Vale.
Okay, I'm just 10 minutes away.
Si vol, d'aquí un moment,
Sí.
em podem posar una mica el microscopi i m'agradaria que es vagi muntant, si ho veu bé, d'anar-ho mirant.
David, if you want, we can start in a little bit, if we can start putting it under the microscope and then do that progressively.
Bàsicament que si se'm talla almenys puguem mirar alguna cosa.
So at least if it separates later on, that at least we'll have that.
Sí. Ves tirant, ves tirant. Ves tirant. Ves tirant. És important la concentració.
Concentration is very important.
I el ventre anat abans.
I el ventre què?
El ventre anat abans.
Oh, and to be trained before, yes.
Porto mig any muntant-ne 3 cada dia.
I've spent for the last year like binding 3 a day.
More or less. Tira. Em faci riure.
Yeah, don't make me laugh.
Bueno, no sé si l'auditori s'ho estarà passant molt bé, nosaltres sí.
I don't know if you're having fun. We are.
Bueno, jo crec que podríem començar amb torn de preguntes, perquè
you
jo en
want-
tinc per una mica i així ens ho agilitzem una mica.
And to agilize a little bit the conversation, if you want to ask us some questions, because it's going to take me a while before I...
Is there a big difference in taste when you mix it with your hand or versus a machine?
Tira.
So if there's a big difference in taste when you make it at home or in the machine?
No, with your hand, when you mix it
O
with the
that-
hand or with the
si Nando, si hi ha una diferència molt gran entre quan ho fas amb una màquina o quan ho fas a mà,
Mira,
en quant a sabor.
sí, això amb una mà, bueno, primer et canses menys.
Number one, obviously, with a machine, you don't get that tired.
Però amb la màquina no munta all i oli sol. Amb la màquina, amb el Turmix, no munta all i oli sol.
Oh, but the thing that you have to understand is with just the immersion blender, you cannot bind garlic and olive oil only.
Costa més que amb la mà.
It's harder than using your hand.
So Nando can't look at this.
Oh, mira això, sisplau. Mira això.
What he's doing is trying to make the drop smaller and smaller because he wants it, now it's very liquid-like. He wants to ultimately make it into an elastic material, into a solid. And so he's making the drops smaller and smaller. You can see many of these are smaller. There's still large ones, and by mixing them, he's breaking them up while adding more and more olive oil. So it's going to be a combination of high volume fraction of the dispersed phase and small drops. And what he's worried about is he doesn't want to break the emulsion, he doesn't want it to phase invert. And that's what he says, he doesn't want to, he's worried that that'll happen. Once it happened, it's all over, you can't recover it. And a good chef will be able to listen to how it sounds and know whether to add a little bit of water as a continuous phase.
Estàs gairebé tu, no? Estàs o no?
Sí, ara li vaig a fer companyia al Nando perquè no se senti sol
So I'm going to...
i vaig a deixar la màquina i ho farem manual.
I'm going to keep him company and I'm going to abandon the machine. I'm going to do it manually as well.
L'altra batida, no l'has vist?
Em podries ajudar a remenar aquí, no?
Could
La
help
meva
me
edat
with...
no m'ho permet, digue-li que no.
Què?
La meva edat no m'ho permet, ara ja fer
That
aquests esforços.
my age doesn't allow me to help you.
Tiri aigua.
No, l'altra batida, és que aquesta no... Però bueno, és igual.
What type of fish did you get the gland from?
What type of fish? De quin tipus de peix ve el
Del bacallà
cod
i de la lluç.
and hake?
Tots els peixos tenen la bufeta aquesta,
Both these fish have the same gland.
però les millors són les de la llobarro, no sé com es dieu aquí, llobarro,
Llobarro, sí.
també en
sí,
té,
veus, ja.
però no té la finura ni de la de lluç ni la del...
No té ni la finura?
La finura, ni la de lluç ni la del bacallà. La del bacallà és excel·lent, aquesta és de bacallà.
Bacallà is excellent. The best is a very good one as well as sea bass, the
I
one
aquí
from sea
a
bass. But it's not as fine as the one from bacalà or hake.
a Alaska teniu un bacallà negre extraordinari.
That here in Alaska, you guys have an extraordinary black cod.
Sí.
Nando said several times that it's very important that both ingredients, water and the oil, should be same temperature. Does it matter that temperature is very cold or it's warm or it's very hot? Would the taste of a sauce differentiate if, say, olive oil and water and liquid would be mixed in a cold temperature versus warm temperature versus hot temperature?
Going to be out of breath after that. La pregunta, Nandus, per tu. Sí, estàs dient que la temperatura és molt important entre el fred i el calent, que sigui tot fred o calent, però pot ser que totes dues siguin fredes o totes dues calents o totes dues a temperatura ambient?
Exactament, a la mateixa temperatura. En el cas de l'holandesa, el que volíem era una salsa calenta, per tant, volíem la mateixa temperatura amb calent. És una emulsió amb calent.
To answer your first part of the question, yes, it has to be the same temperature. So, for instance, when we made the hollandaise, we want that to be a hot sauce, so that's why the temperature were high for both the ingredients.
Aigua n'agafarà?
But you could do it cold as well, yeah.
I en canvi en fred, si aquí haguéssim tirat els alls de la nevera i l'oli estigués a temperatura ambient, ja se'ns hauria tallat ara, ja.
But here, if we had added, for instance, like in the aioli that we're making, garlic from the refrigerator and the oil would be hot, then it would have separated already.
Does it affect texture of the sauce, the temperature of the ingredients?
Si la temperatura dels ingredients afecta la textura de la salsa.
Més que la textura, el que afecta és que es munti abans o es munti més tard. I jo el que vaig fent és que vaig tirant aigua calenta ara, quan veig que se'm munta massa o se'm munta... Sobretot quan se'm munta massa i afegeixo aigua calenta, unes gotes.
That more than the texture, what it affects is that it binds, quicker or, before or after in a way, So that's what it affects, And that's why I'm adding some lukewarm water now.
Thank you. I just have a question. What's the difference between hollandaise and mayonnaise? It seems the ingredients are the same. So I'm wondering, is that just the addition of water or is it the temperature or what's the difference?
Nando, quina és la diferència entre maionesa i holandesa? És solament del fet que en afegeixes aigua? O
No, una és amb calent i l'altra és amb fred. És exactament la mateixa.
It's exactly the same sauce. The only thing that one is cold, the other one is hot.
És una grassa.
I la matèria
És una grassa.
It's fat.
Com un és oli fred i l'altra és una matèria grassa.
One is with oil cold.
Pot ser mantequilla normalment clarificada.
And usually it's clarified for the hollandaise, for the hot one, usually it's clarified butter.
Sembla que va bé.
Seems that things are going well.
It's not flowing as much, so it's getting stiffer. You see, here it's already getting solid-like. Good job, Nando.
Good job.
Yeah.
Hi ha un secret, Hi ha un secret. Si aquí tiréssim xantana o hi tiréssim lecitina, això ens ajudaria,
Okay, that if, there is a secret. Obviously, if we added the xantan powder or lecithin, lecithin, it would help us, of course.
Yes, if he added surfactant, it would be much easier, but he's making it, he's no surfactant. That's why he says it's so difficult to mix, because he's using the garlic as surfactant as well as the continuous phase. But you can see what we're sitting here and just watching what he's doing with his hand. Why it's so hard for him is he's breaking the drops into smaller and smaller drops. Now you can start to see it getting really small ones here. And that's really going to be his goal, to break it up into very uniform suspension of very small drops. That's why it's so much work. Now he's adding just a little bit more water to make sure it doesn't phase invert.
The Romanesco sauce looked orange in my plate, and it looked white on the microscope, and I'm curious why.
Tots estan ronys ara.
If you look at it, what's happening is it's very, very thin. And so you can barely see the color. But if you actually look at this sample with your eyes, you see that it's still orange. Maybe I can hold it up. It's actually still fairly orange. But if you look very closely, the color is not completely uniform.
It's
clear with little orange specks.
And the reason is that the orange color is coming from the various materials he added. It's not continuous.
Estem a la
So-
meitat.
So
Més
what
menys
would be
estem a la
the...
meitat.
oh,
Yeah, we are halfway at the moment.
Si va bé, podré córrer més.
If it goes my way, I'll be able to go faster.
Com que no n'estic segur, vaig a poc.
Since I'm not sure, I'm going slowly.
Estem a Harvard.
Come?
Que estem a Harvard.
Oh, we are at Harvard. Yeah.
M'agradaria que no se'm tallés.
I would, pray that it doesn't separate.
So what would be the disadvantage of adding a surfactant so that he makes his life easier?
Sorry,
What would be the disadvantage of adding surfactants?
Explica alguna cosa.
Make it easier.
Quin seria
Explica alguna cosa.
la desavantatge d'utilitzar el secret per fer-la més ràpida?
Ah, no ho sé. No ho sé.
I don't know. I don't know.
My grandmother no.
You missed the challenge.
Nando, t'estic fent costat per això, jo també.
Bueno, però explica alguna cosa.
That I'm your competitor here.
I si hi ha la càmera per aquí, anem veient com es va muntant.
Can we have the camera?
Yeah, the camera, please.
What exactly is lecithin?
Amb l'aigua
Aquí,
igual.
mira. Aquí. Yeah.
Explain what that is.
Explica el que és. Explica el que és.
Aquesta salsa seria una salsa base
So that's the base sauce
per condimentar bacallà,
Tenim els
lluç,
pots a punt?
rodaballo,
to cook all sorts of fish, like from cod to hake, flounder,
llagostins.
shrimp.
És una salsa que es munta a temperatura d'uns 40-45 graus
We bind it at a temperature of 40-45 degrees Celsius.
i un cop està muntada es pot aixecar fins a 80-85 graus. O sigui que es pot menjar calenta conservant tota la finura.
And once it's binded, then you can raise the temperature to around 80-85 degrees, and you would keep exactly the same texture, the same fine texture.
Es pot guardar 2 dies, tranquil·lament,
It keeps for a couple of days,
i sempre que faci falta, doncs aixecant a poc i amb varilla la temperatura de la salsa es pot fer servir.
and anytime that you need it, if you just raise a little bit the temperature of the sauce, then you can serve it.
O sigui que el que nosaltres diem en cuina mise en place, preparació, preparació, abans,
So what we call in the kitchen vocabulary mise en place, that is the prep that takes place before serving.
si algun dia tenim convidats a casa, doncs tenim una base important feta i a punt per fer-la servir al moment.
And if at any time we have guests at home, we have a base that we can use and be ready at any moment, at any given
I a
moment.
part, amb una densitat i una finura
And you can
tremenda.
see that stupendous density and very fine taste. Yeah.
Para un moment. Calenta això.
Tira. Va bé aquesta aigua?
No m'agrada ara. Aquesta aigua se'ns havia refredat i tiràvem aigua massa freda.
That I don't like it at the moment as it is because the water got cold and I was adding water that was too cold for my taste.
Està més estable o menys estable?
It's more or less stable now, David.
It's more stable now.
Que es veu més estable.
It's smaller bubbles, smaller drops, and you can see they don't move quite as much. So it's getting more and more solid. Notice here you have a large drop coated with small particles. These are the garlic particles that are acting as the surfactant. See this? This is garlic particles on the surface of the drop. So the ground up garlic is acting like a surfactant. She's asking why can you not add, or why can you add oil faster at the end? And the reason is it's becoming more viscous. It's coming closer and closer to an elastic solid. So when you when you shear the drops with the fluid, there's larger forces, so it breaks the oil more easily. The whole goal is to break the oil up into small drops. And it's like if you put it through honey and stir it in honey, it breaks it up more easily than stirring it in water. The forces are larger. There was a question at the back. Peter, does she want to ask a question? No? Go ahead. Ask your question. Speak up.
The question was, what is lecithin? And we answered it in our row, but the question remains, what is lecithin?
What is lecithin? It's a surfactant. It's acting as a surfactant.
What is its origin?
Oh. Peter tells you.
Where is the dollar from?
Pardon?
According to Wikipedia, it's from soybean.
The font of all knowledge.
Soybean oil, but it's naturally in the egg yolks, right? So that's why they always throw it into the mayonnaise and all the other things, because it's a small amount of lecithin that's in there naturally. And you'll see it in stuff like chocolate and such, so it occurs naturally in small quantities in a lot of things. So they throw the egg yolks in to bind it because the lecithin in there, naturally in there, is your surfactant or your emulsifier.
Tu has acabat ja amb allò?
Oh, Carlos.
Jo no ho faré,
No? I think that I'm not going to be able to make it.
Oh, come on.
No, que no ho giraré.
Oh, that I'm not going to turn it upside down, yes.
But he might give you some to taste.
Per un moment.
Parla dels països consumidors de bacallà.
Si no lliga, no lliga.
Sí, ara posaré aquesta, m'agradaria veure-la, que aquesta estaria a punt per menjar, aquesta salsa.
That David, if it's possible, we would like to see this one because this one is ready to eat, to serve.
Okay?
Aquesta salsa
always
seria
possible to see
la que
things
ens
that
naparia
meat.
el peix.
This sauce would be the one that would cover the fish.
Oh.
Igual, no variation.
It's
The same
perfect.
thing. No variation.
No variation. It's very smooth.
Molt fina.
The bubbles are the drops are very uniform. They're almost completely solid. A little bit of motion. Here is solid. This one's solid here. Go ahead.
Uniformité. Yeah.
No, there we go. The lecithin and I believe he was using gelatin are both proteins as surfactants. Are there any surfactants out there that aren't protein-based?
Sí, Nando, està parlant de les coses que uneixen tot. N'hi ha, estàs parlant, hem parlat de l'acetin i tot això, però hi ha altres que no estiguin basades en proteïna?
No ho sé, perquè ell està concentrat aquí. Si no, no em sortiran. Ell ho pot explicar més bé que jo.
At the moment, probably David can answer that question because I'm too, concentrate on...
Sóc un home. Dues coses alhora i prou.
I'm a man, after all. I can only do two things at once.
Go ahead.
Lecithin is not a protein, it's a phospholipid. And you can also use sucroester or monoglyceride and combine the two together. And one is more hydrophobic, and the other hydrophilic. So if you combine both, you can also do an emulsion.
Cap aquell pot de vidre que tenim. Cap el pot de vidre que tenim.
Vols canviar?
És que no puc remenar.
What are you trying to do? On the camera.
Em pots fregar aquí, Carles?
Go with the camera.
Carles, com es vull, no? Canviarem. Ja està, Carles, ja està, és el mateix. És the same. És que no el puc remenar fort, perquè m'esquitxo.
Cannot stir it as strong as I want in the bowl.
A mi em fa mal aquí de veure'l.
I feel that my shoulder, just painful just watching him.
Parla dels bacallars. Els bacallars.
Dels tres tipus de bacallà.
Bueno, el bacallà...
Els països on és més.
Sí. Hi ha, per cultura, de segles, hi ha tres països on es treballa millor el bacallà.
That culturally, historically, there are three countries where people work very much with cod or salt cod.
Que són dos parts d'Espanya, una és Catalunya i l'altra el País Basc.
In Spain, there are two of them already. There is the Basque Country and Catalonia, where we come from.
Portugal.
And then Portugal. Historically, those are the three cultures that use the bacalao the most.
De les tres, la que té més diversitat de treballar el mateix producte és Catalunya.
Of the three, the one that has more diversity in using or creativity using the same product is Catalonia.
Hi ha una cultura molt arraigada del bacallà salat.
Especially is like a very lots of roots with using salt cod, especially.
I llavors, a la carta, per exemple, nostra, del restaurant, com a mínim, sempre hi ha 3 plats en composició de bacallà.
And in my restaurant, for instance, in my menu, any given time, I portray 3 different types of salt cod in my menu.
El fem amb brandada,
amb bunyols,
bunyols,
fritters, el bacalà fritters,
esqueixat, cru,
shredded, raw,
fried, amb
pil-pil sauce,
and
so on.
Infinitat de maneres.
Infinity of variations.
L'únic problema que té el bacallà és saber el de salat com s'ha de fer.
The only problem that salt cod presents is to know exactly the point, on how to desalt it.
Jo desconec si aquí als Estats Units tenen molta cultura del peix salat, del bacallà salat.
I don't know. I don't know if in the United States you have the same culture with salted fish.
Sí. En tenen? No ho sé. No.
No.
És una llàstima.
It's a pity.
És una llàstima perquè és un dels peixos que un cop s'hidrata continua conservant tota la seva gelatina natural i tota la seva finura, si es fa bé.
That it's a pity because once it has been hydrated, it keeps its gelatin and defined texture. Meat, the flesh, yeah.
Això és teu?
Això és meu.
Això és teu?
It's my friend.
Bueno.
It's my bubbles.
Vale.
You're getting better, Nando. Keep at it. It's so much easier to tell him to do it than to do it.
I don't understand.
Explain to him.
Que està millorant, que continua,
Però de
persisteix.
totes maneres sembla que les té molt enfadades, les molècules.
That it seems that the molecules, the bubbles, are very upset with each other.
Però segur que ho arregla.
But I'm sure that he'll be able to fix it.
Estic una mica espantat.
Yep. I'm a little afraid, scared.
El divendres ho vaig fer en 20 minuts i porto, em sembla, 3/4.
On Friday I made in 20 minutes, now it's already 45 minutes.
És que aquest oli ha viatjat, és un oli català que ha viatjat i això pot estar marejat, aquest oli.
It's a Catalan olive oil that has traveled, probably it is seasick.
Quants litros ens falten?
La meitat.
No.
Un i mig, així.
Sembla que em comenci a cansar.
For how long it what?
Tira una mica més de pressa.
For how long it stays? Nando, per quant temps dura la llet? Un cop l'has fet, quant temps dura?
Si és molt estable pot durar hasta un dia a la nevera. Si no, si l'acabem de fer ho explicaré.
If it's very
Si no
stable,
l'has de separar en petites muntanyetes, perquè si no, quan el remenes, també és una pregunta que volem fer aquí, quan el remenes es talla.
yeah, that if it's very stable at the end, and we're talking about the one without the yolks, it stays for 1 day in the refrigerator. Now, that's if only if it's very stable. If not, and that's a question for David as well, when we stir it up, or when we separate in little mounds, because if we have to stir it up or use a spoon, then it separates, and that's a question that we have for you.
This is a very delicate emulsion, and if it's not completely stabilized, once it starts to coalesce, it will just continue to coalesce. It becomes much more fluid-like, and it starts to drain the water out, and the drops start to coalesce. The problem Nando's having is to get the garlic to go to the surface, to the interface between the fluid and the oil. That's why he has to mix it. That's why he mixes it by hand. It's a difficult thing to get it to go to the interface. That's what stabilizes the drops.
Would it have been easier to do less?
Si l'hauries de remenar menys.
It would be, but it wouldn't feed as many people.
Si l'hauries de remenar menys.
Més, hauria de remenar més.
You would have to wait longer.
Ara... És que no em dono per vençut,
I don't give up.
Tira més de pressa.
Ho juguem?
Sí.
Apostem tot el negre?
Sí. Apostem tot el negre. Tirem més de pressa, si surt bé, si no també.
Tot, vinga.
De què?
Apostem tota una carta.
Okay, yeah, let's bet everything on black or red.
De totes maneres, s'ha de dir que l'avantatge primordial que té a fer la aioli d'aquesta manera és que et queda el cabell molt brillant.
That the number one advantage of doing aioli this way is that you'll end up with very, very shiny hair.
These emulsions we're creating, what if you had an emulsion that you wanted to do the phase inversion or you wanted to break? What are the strategies to go the other direction?
If you wanted to phase invert, you can make the emulsion and not add the small amount of water that he adds to really just make so much dispersed phase that it eventually breaks and phase inverts. In fact, that's a commonly used technique to make very, very small particles. So you can make very, very small drops that way, but through phase inversion. You can also do things like heat it up, go to a temperature where the surfactant doesn't work quite as well.
Quasi està. Per amunt.
Almost.
Falta una mica i ja està.
A little bit more and we're done.
What is this sauce traditionally eaten with?
Amb què es menjaria, aquesta salsa?
És especial per menjar amb una barbecue, amb una barbacoa, amb xai, normalment, amb xai, botifarra, amb porc.
Lamb barbecue, sausage barbecue as well. More than barbecue, I would say grill probably, yeah.
Podríem mirar-ho ara? Està quasi...
Can we take a look? It's almost there.
Tira. Espera't un moment. Falta poc, eh?
A little bit more.
Tira. És perillós estar aquí al meu costat.
Què?
It's dangerous.
That it's very dangerous to be next to me.
Acabem de tirar tot aquest, va.
Hi ha alguna pregunta més? Sí.
So, if the goal is to break the fats, why is the hand better than a machine? You'd expect a machine to have more force, right, to break all the bubbles.
Because he wants the particles of the garlic to go to the interface. And so you want to get exactly the right amount of shear. Too much will destroy them. Last time he was here, he made it with a mortar and pestle. He's never done it with a machine.
Cada cop és estable. Digue-li si cada cop és més estable o no.
Can we tell if every time it's a little bit more stable?
It looks, the drops look like they're better coated with the garlic, but here the drops look a little larger, Nando.
Que les bombolles sembla que estan millor amb l'all, però es veuen cada vegada una mica més grans.
Això malament.
So
Això què vol dir?
So that's not a good thing?
He needs to work a little harder.
Yeah. Que has de treballar una mica més dur.
Va.
Could you please remind us what all the ingredients are in the sauce and what part the cod gland plays in it?
Si ens podeu recordar a tots una mica els ingredients que hi ha en aquesta...
A l'allioli?
Sí.
All i oli.
Just like the name, garlic and oil.
I think he means the other sauce.
Oh, which one?
The other one that he made.
Sorry, la teva.
La meva. Aquesta.
Sí. Tots els ingredients que has utilitzat.
Tripeta.
Okay. The natatorial gland.
Aigua.
Water.
Bullir-la 5 minuts.
Boil for 5 minutes.
Retirar les tripetes com aquestes d'aquí que ja estan.
And once they are done,
L'aigua d'ebullició.
Keep the water.
Reduir-la fins que quedi just el cul, però bé.
And then reduce that water until it's just like a fine layer on the pan.
Amb un allet laminat.
With a little bit of sliced garlic. very thinly sliced garlic.
Esperar que baixi la temperatura a uns 50-55 graus.
Let it cool to around 50-55 degrees.
I llavors simplement anar-hi tirant oli i anar
And then emulsify it with olive oil.
Porta'l cap aquí, ja està.
Little by little.
Quan poses el dit i notes que la temperatura ja ha baixat de 50 graus o amb un termòmetre,
When you put your finger and you realize that the temperature is below 50 degrees, or you can use a thermometer as well.
l'acostes al foc, que pugi altra vegada i vinga.
And then you put it on, you heat it up and until it gets up again, to the
Aquesta
temperature you
salsa
want.
et mataria 4 vegades o 5 més de l'oli que hi ha aquí.
And this sauce could take 4 or 5 times more the olive oil that is already here.
El factor més determinant pel tema gustatiu és que l'oli no ha de ser un oli extra verge, sí, evidentment,
That in terms of taste, one of very important thing is that the olive oil has to be extra virgin, yes, but
però ha de ser un oli molt afruitat i molt poc amarg.
but it has to be a very fruity olive oil and no bitterness whatsoever.
De tant en tant, quan es va emulsionant, posar-li unes culleradetes més d'aigua d'ebullició sense reducció per anar-la afinant, perquè si no queda molt compacta.
Then while you're stirring it, little by little to add a little bit of the same reduced water, just little by little, so it's not too compact.
I ja està, i no hi ha res més. Després, quan es vol portar a la menja, per menjar-la, és fer un peix simplement a la planxa, a la barbacoa, com vulgui, i aquesta salsa és la salsa per acompanyar a qualsevol tipus de peix.
And then once you're ready to serve it, the only thing that you have to do is you can either grill or griddle a piece of fish, and then you just coat it with this sauce, and that's it.
On és el meu telèfon? Busca-lo. Bueno, s'ha tallat,
So it has separated.
Bueno, demà...
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tornem-hi.
We'll try again tomorrow.
Sí. Ara... Sap greu. Tinc la prova, amb un iPhone, tinc la prova que ho monto.
És possible.
I have in my iPhone, and I'm going to show it to you, that I'm able to do it.
Exacte. Ara, si voleu anar baixant aquí i algú el vol provar, és bo igual, l'únic que no està muntat.
That if you want to come here and taste it, you're very welcome to do so. The only thing is that it's not binded.
Jo ho ensenyo a la càmera i ho veureu, que jo ho sé fer-ho,
And I'm going to show it in the camera that I know how to make it.
I demà us convido que demà la muntarem,
And you're invited for tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm going to be able to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sí,
All of the emulsions that are here, you're welcome to come up and try before you leave if you like. Those of you sitting at the front can make it to the fastest, but please try some.
There'll be a task to take that out. Molt bé, molt bé. Però bé, el 67 anys...